That was amazing. Thank you so much, Stephen and Matt. So I'd like to introduce Chris McCabe, who's going to read a short collaboration with me about Liverpool. My family's actually originally from Liverpool, which is why I never came here up until about 2 years ago. Chris is very much an advocate of Liverpool, so it's a short collaboration called Dead Goodlike. I've killed for Croxteth, or so the stovejack tells me as we cross the aisle to leave the train. No longer do I know if I'm looking with my naked eye at a naked sky or at a drop of water with a microscope. As something wet beads off my hand, which is off his body and on my shoulder. At least it's not my neck. He's over familiar, which is here, a sign that everything is as it has always been, since the origin of the machine. Since the body became an engine,
a halo called
people here already catching up, coming from every horizon as part of this city. Just a dozen steps onto the platform, one has to ask, does it really matter that these children are abusing me? Is my ego so fragile, or is it the character of the city itself which taints the tone? I am reminded, scallies, they were themselves abused by those who have no right to call themselves parents.
Everyone who ever died in Liverpool is only suffering from delayed concussion. The local church, knocked with some after-eights, on a lead behind a dog called Zeus. A cathedral fits inside the social club. Nobody notices the martyrs drowning in the optics. Paintball in the forest is an all-inclusive stag do on which you can drink, eat chicken and hold an Uzi. Hold a gun like your mother, firmly with respect. The game in the red light district is to find the moral high ground without foregoing a vice. I don't pay me water bills. It's not like they can cut you off, is it? The heating bill that winter was extortionate. We realised in spring the flush was piped to the boiler.
When the bird fell, the snow multiplied and then wouldn't leave it alone. I found myself behind, but later it was proven beyond doubt. It was me shooing in its head. Still, it's a big enough city to think you might be safe while you aren't.
The storm
if you
in
don't
a port,
belong,
each family has
don't.
explorers,
Another
and
bull,
poet
another
to
atheist
say
burn,
goodbye to
another mix
Scotty
of
Road.
reference. I am kind enough to keep walking, cruel enough to want to intervene, but maybe she'd attack me for doing so.
When the waterfront was containerised, we got a lock-in at the New Borgesian. McGuff couldn't find a crack out of the pattern. How can I brush me sprouts when there's no fluoride in the gravy? I spent the next 3 hours expanding on why I hadn't become a Beatle. The Hitlers of Liverpool had that summer a bad case of spots, pimples and bum fluff, and had put themselves under quarantine at Speke Hall. We entered the Dockers meeting with a modernist umbrella and left in a symbolist frenzy. Allen Ginsberg was told to leave the junk shop as only supermarkets would take his Whitman loyalty card. The overhead railway was sans oyster compatible. At least we can all be local comedians now in 7 different languages. In a world waterfront city, what exactly do the Liverpool fire bobbies have for work except to quench my 800-year-old love-worn heart?
Littered with stories which seem to be people's work there, as though having a sense of humour is necessary for getting through difficult times. Not true if the sense of humour isn't particularly funny, or if the hard times are of your own making. That being said, I wouldn't say that to anyone's face from there, because then all the grinning would turn to ash and I'd be
a hammer and
pieces
sickle
all out of my
postmark
face.
activating a gypsy.
We stayed in a hotel room, but waddled down from
Hull.
Jerry and the Pacemakers. That story ended in suicide. I can't imagine why. I remember stumbling out of the church hall. I played in a skiffle band. I walked past the Beatles and leant over to whisper in my brother's ear, "Don't look now, these dickheads think they're good."
Fuck Larkin. Postmen go like politicians, not doctors, from house to house. Doctors wait for the call. The postman, wandering household god, divides the terraces like box sets, his heart awaiting a fix in the clutch and gearbox centre. Renga man of L7, he knows where we live, propels the chain forwards. From the last line, rooted in seasons, turns a blind mind to the car alarm that sirens the out of office hours. At the Royal Liverpool Hospital, what I thought was a funnel from the mortuary is an upside down hammer and sickle. If mutability leads to adventures in pubs, mortality spears us with politics. Change. The postman gloves a letterbox with voting slips like love letters and finishes his shift in the afternoon hollow of flesh delights.
Practicing my moves in the basement of St. George's Hall, I'm distracted by the brutal bloom of the caretaker's whiskey blossom and can hardly challenge the true oasis of a regurgitated American karate. As words that stress the nominalism of words, Warbreck, Walton, Percy Villas, further my irritation when I'm able to discern that these have been wasted years studying Kempo. It doesn't work. Instead I'll train with Richard Grannon, Claude Michel Schomburg, and Alain Boublil,
the tide
and perhaps take my wrestling into the world of mixed martial arts, but not in Liverpool, in Paris, to train with the snake before he commits suicide after being spared from a righteous revenge. I would imagine the fighting community in this city has associations I'd rather not be associated with. Instead, I take the bus to Ellesmere Port, where I urinate from the bars of housing estate public houses, asking, "Who is the biggest cunt in here then, huh?"
Intensive prayer is intensive care, quotes Hill, quoting Herbert. A blackberry sings out the Pope's resignation. He gave up like Hugo Ball at the Cabaret Voltaire, lifted like a metallic wizard with arthritic rivets from the stage. My own double, Mini Caryatid, follows me around the signature bookstore, wants to swap Coupland's J-Pod for Hill's Clavics. The novel is all brawn and no form. Clavics sculpts forever in trellised limestone. There are power stations on Lister Drive like clay mannequins. At least there were in 1929. In the Corpus Mercatorium, the open space of parklands is available for credit. Across Everton Brow, the cathedral city, a rumbled motherboard. 16 city council guardsmen chase the shadow forms of 17 wild horses.
When conquest becomes a pure anecdote, no different than a poorly told sliver of a realist warfare, treading the same used-up subjects with the same melodramatic cliches, and it seems all the conquistador is doing is searching for that one metaphor or clever turn of fate that'll make that grotesque in the third row gasp or mumble a warm grunt of gross poetical solidarity, I feel utterly alienated and a little bit sick.
A city of theatre goers who understand
mawkish self-pity resides in words sung as spoken. Any poet who likes the lyrics of musicals should be watched, if not hunted down and maimed in the fingers. Before Liverpool, I thought it was the darkened refuge of the flowering mind obese. Turns out it's acceptable to like it in broad daylight. Leaving Liverpool, it is undoubted procedure, like removing an arrow from a thigh. There was a light off in a tree, but now it's gone. Thanks.